Well, welcome to episode 15 of Financing Your Cannabis Future, the Beard Bros podcast. I'm here actually with the Beard Bros. This is the first time we've done this. I'm here with Bill and Jeff Lovers. Love having you guys on the show, and what a great way to kick off the new year.
I could not agree more. We're very happy to be here with you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. We're kicking 2026 off with a bang.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. I mean, what a crazy year 2025 was, and so many uncertainties upcoming in 2026 too. So I'm looking forward to navigating all this together. I guess we weren't planning that, but let's talk about maybe a recap of like 2025 and what we feel like for the upcoming new year.
Well, 2025 is, in my opinion, has seen more movement in cannabis in the United States than it's seen in a long, long time. We had the hemp being banned, right? That came along. We've had Schedule 3 being pushed along, and so that's more movement than I've seen in cannabis in a decade.
Yeah.
The only constant in cannabis is change, and we saw quite a bit of it in the last year. That's for sure.
Yeah, and there is so much uncertainty here too, with like kind of the Schedule 3 and what that means for everybody. We're not going to go into that too much because multiple podcasts could be done on that, and none of us have a crystal ball of what that means. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting 2026. So I'd say stay tuned, right?
Yeah, I mean, and that actually goes along with what we wanted to talk about today, which was collaboration, right? With these things happening and compression and Schedule 3, where the real money is going to finally enter, right? Like the big cannabis companies, that's not big money. The big money is pharma, alcohol, and tobacco. And when that starts getting put into it, it's going to change the landscape completely.
For sure. Like, I was out in London at the Tallman Group event out there just a couple of months ago, and there's definitely expressed interest. That's a incubator for and target companies and investors, among other things. And what I heard was that there's capital waiting. There's a lot of capital waiting, and the capital is waiting for this rescheduling. So I'm sure that's happening in the US, and that's also happening overseas. That's what I'm hearing. So there's
I was just gonna say, I actually just saw it this morning looking on our LinkedIn. I'm I'm paying attention to what Seth Yakutan's talking about, and he was talking about Kronos going into the Netherlands and just straight up buying one of the largest adult use companies there and positioning themselves right at the front of the line. So there's definitely a lot of uncertainty, but there's definitely also some movement starting to happen.
And that makes so much sense because Canada has been living off of Europe. Literally, the amount of cannabis and cannabis products they've been importing to Europe has kept the Canadian market alive, in my opinion.
Yeah, and actually impacting the European market, and obviously Germany as well, adversely, So unfortunately, Germany's seen an influx of other products coming into their market, which I think was unforeseen, but that's what happens when you don't protect your kind of local economy, right? So I don't know how you guys feel about that, but
well, Germany basically did a half step, right? They had two plans in place. And the first plan was decriminalize personal cultivation and setting up clubs so that people that were cultivating could share. They just didn't get to the second part, which was setting up an actual format for adult use sales and consumption and production.
Yeah, and supply chain. They didn't think about their own supply chain and protecting that. It's
well, if there's one thing that operators are good at, it's filling those gaps when those gaps are left open.
Yeah. So that's a good quick market update for what we see happening, because I know I see you guys everywhere. We travel together as well and make sure we're at a lot of the same events because we do a lot of collaboration and things like that. And it works out, I think, very well for both of us. I see you guys in Berlin, I see BC, we go to, what's going to be Ignited now in Chicago, all over the place. We see each other. So we get to see all the different markets and do some fun collabing. But I know we met back at your live sesh, which was awesome. One of my clients said, hey, you should go to this live session in Malibu. And that was back in January 2023. Actually, Dina at Grass Goddess, she was like, you got to go. And so that's how I met you guys, was from her. Thank you to Dina. And I attended that event. In fact, we did some filming out at your event and did some interviews. That was so much fun. And your event is highly curated. That's what I love, is that you've been in the industry for so long that you know how to curate an audience very well. There's a lot of synergies, and it's the good eggs. It's the good people that you want to actually partner with. Do you guys want to chat about that?
Yeah, the reality of the events is that, when you're looking at these events from the outside, you think to yourself, oh, look, these guys are just traveling around, they're just talking to people, but the reality of it is the networking of those events is what will take everybody to the next level. We have to continue to collaborate. Especially as small and medium companies, because the large ones are going to be coming in with money. So the importance of these events, which is why we've leaned into it, you were leaning into it. So it was very good synergy for our two companies that we were both leaning into events at the exact same time.
Well, I think there's also multiple prongs to those events. There can be where you're the established host of that and you're trying to build a stronger network around, or as you mentioned earlier, it could be somewhere like Europe that Bill and I hadn't been to until this calendar year for business. And we needed to seed that market a lot more than we do the US. So getting there and being the new kids on the block, the new person, meeting all the new people, compared to like hosting your own event where you've curated that list and you're going, well, I know if Rachel's there and so is there, that's going to be a great synergy and a great conversation, and something might spark from that. So it's interesting to even run the gamut on something as simple as the events, from the new side to the experienced operator running them. And everything gives you a different value out of that event and a different network to continue to build. And it's one of the things that's exciting and continues to refuel your tank, I think.
Yeah. And I also loved like the advocacy that was happening at that event as well. So we had, Maha Hawk was there talking, and, and I know Elliot was there as well. And so there's a lot of, we need to come together as an industry in our local markets. We always say that cannabis is hyper localized, and it is super hyper localized. And we see in California, organizations such as COCOA and other types of organizations banding together because we have to work together, right? And so when you have informal events such as the live sesh, then we can actually come together, share more ideas in person. It's that time that we can use just for that. So I saw a lot of that happening as well, ideas being exchanged, and it was personally very beneficial for me to be around everybody and to see all different angles.
Couldn't agree more. Like I said, people tend to think the events are a lot of fluff. That just depends on how you treat the event, right? What are your goals? You have goals before you get there, because if you just show up and wing it, it might be fluff. But if you have people, you're like, we plan on meeting people at events. We plan ahead and make business meetings and attempt to do business prior to even getting there.
Yeah. And I know, so for me, I met a couple of operators that I ended up working with, some legacy operators, from SoCal, so it was very beneficial for me. And I think it ended up being beneficial for those operators as well. We have a long-term relationship working together. And I think, not only do I meet, legacy operators, but I know legacy operators right now because they need a lot of help. Sometimes they're used to the time period where the price per pound was really, really high. You didn't really have to know how to do business properly because the money was kind of flowing in. This was many years ago now, but now you have these big facilities, say, for example, and now you need to know how to operate them efficiently, right? So I think, what I ended up doing with some of the operators that I met there was, I always do like a phase one, like it's usually like a triage. Most people come in to my firm at like a ball of flames, like a comet coming in. I've got this wrong. I've got this wrong. I've got this wrong. Or sometimes they don't even know what they have wrong, what's going on. They don't know how many tax liabilities they're facing. They haven't even opened their mail. Sometimes what happens is actually mail gets shipped to a location and they're not even getting their mail, or the person that's opening it might just stick it on their desk, as I've seen, or hang it up on a wall and say, oh, this looks scary, but I don't know what to do with it. And so usually it's like kind of triage mode. Let's get them out of triage mode. Let's deal with all the notices. Let's maybe amend some tax returns. And then we try to start getting them into like a stability mode and then a thriving mode. And so I think that's what I find with a lot of legacy operators right now and I say legacy, meaning they've been operating for a very long time and on both sides of the market. And now they're in the legal side of the market. But the legacy to me is also kind of a little bit of a mindset when it comes to financial mindset. So we have to actually operate the business like it's a business. So I think trying to cause that mind shift, that change in mind, and that shift in mindset, I think is really, really important to like, hey, now we got to operate a real business if we want to stay viable, and we have to stay ahead of the game. And I'm sure with you guys, like even like on the marketing side and stuff, it's really important too, because legacy sometimes is trying to rely on still the word of mouth, where their competitors are out there actually doing an advertising campaigns. So I don't know. I talked a lot there. What do you guys?
Well, no, you're exactly right. The days of the $3,000 to $5,000 pounds are gone. Right. There's now $500 to $1,500 pounds. And it's something that we recognized a while ago, that you're going to have a percentage of business and culture or legacy in your business. It can't be all of one or the other. It has to be a blend. And now it doesn't have to be a 50-50 blend, but it needs to, in my opinion, needs to be probably a 70-30 blend at bare minimum. You have to have some kind of business structure behind what you're doing, because the lack of illegality brought the prices down, right? The overproduction and the fact that it wasn't illegal and being smuggled and all these things have really changed how you have to operate.
Well, I think you hit on it perfectly. It's actually is a mindset change, because the way you operated your businesses in the past didn't support transparency. It didn't support having a lot of people know everything that was going on within your business and where you're going to be making your moves ahead of when you made them. So just from an operator perspective, to understand, I can't continue to operate my business that way. I need to shift this. And then I think the other one was the specialization of the industry. Like back when we were still cultivating full time, we were also doing extraction. We were also doing distribution. We were also doing retail with a delivery. And there's not a lot of people vertically integrated like that anymore. A lot of people have had to go, well, I'm going to just go down to being a breeder, just a cultivator, just an extractor or a distributor, or running retails. And when you do that, you naturally lose connection to those parts of the industry at the depth that you were in them. So you end up needing to find partners that know the financial system much better than you do, and know a better way. You may have been filing your taxes, doing all of your quarterly returns, doing all the things correctly, but you might not have been doing them in the most effective way and strategic way to forward plan your business. We were doing a lot of things in the past in a reactive fashion. It was, let me get this harvest out, let me sell this harvest, so then I can pay my workers and I can get the next harvest going. And now you have to be planning 6 months, 12 months, 2 years out. And while operators plan that way logistically, you didn't plan that way in terms of the structure of your business. It was, let me hold everything as close to the vest as I can. Let me keep everything myself as I can. And let's not expose ourselves to the greater industry. But it's flipped on that. And the people that realized that and made that flip earlier are the ones that are more successful now. The ones that, I can do this all myself still, or still took all that on. Those are the ones that have taken their lumps over the years and have eventually come back around and been like, I noticed you guys did this and made this move and you linked with this person. Like, how did that help you guys? And through one conversation. And it's a lot of times it's somebody seeing that we're doing so much work with you and Verdant and you personally. And like, what has that impacted your business? And it's like, well, she's actually changed the way we think about our business. It isn't just the way that we day-to-day change things. She's changing the way we think about our business and the way we plan our business. And that's the key that's unlocking a lot of things.
Yeah. I'd say, we have to proactively look. First of all, what I find is people don't really have good financials to begin with in general. Like when folks come to me, it's like, if there's no financials, they're in bad shape. So it's very simple to keep the accounting simple. and then produce financial statements and then actually look at them, start doing some analysis, projections, and then target setting. So like right now, I'm working with a lot of different groups, but one, I can think of a bunch of retailers, a stream of retailers. We're setting goals for them, like KPI goals. Like we know in New York, for example, your EBITDA can be based on all of the clients that I have out there between 17 and 21%. And that's not unreasonable. Now in California, you're not going to get that, for retailers. So you have to know kind of all the different markets. But like if we have, first of all, just decent financials, right? They don't have to be accrual. They don't have to be very fancy. Actually, simpler the better. We don't need to get into deep dive KPIs. First, let's just get the basic numbers down. Let's keep that simple. And then let's start setting some EBITDA goals so that we can start putting money back into the hands of partners, shareholders, and things like that, and keeping the business viable. And so you can only do that if you do the very simple things, like making sure you have financials, making sure we're meeting monthly, making sure we're setting goals. And, so I think we're going to turn around, this company that I'm working with right now to a loss up to, hopefully 17% EBITDA, which would put millions of dollars back into the hands of either the business so they can expand, or back into the investors. And to be honest, it's not very hard. I think that when people make it over complicated, I think they can't see the forest through the trees. So I think keeping things very simple and spending the time on actually looking at the numbers, coming up with plans, is actually more beneficial than spending a ton of money and a ton of time making very complicated financials. I think that's really key.
Well, I think one of the things.
Well, it's totally understandable, because as people who cultivated cannabis before it was an adult use legal market like it is now, you had to do everything yourself. You had to be MacGyver, right? And I don't mean just like even from the building of a grow, you had to be able to understand like electrical work, you had to understand plumbing work, you had to do construction work, you had to build your own thing, and that's and cannabis. Producers like ourselves have been chased after and persecuted for decades. So there wasn't a sharing of information. The one thing I can say since we've started working with you is when we lay these goals out and we actually start to lay out a financial plan, you can now see things that you never even understood before, because it's there and it's expected. And then people like yourself who are doing this with other people can help people like ourselves to be able to plan accordingly and set goals correctly.
And I think the other thing you hit on there was the ability to compare yourself with others in the industry. Even if you had the numbers yourself, the fact that the industry as a whole has matured enough that there's categories that you can go, okay, I am performing equal to my contemporaries, or I am outperforming them, or I am behind the curve. Before, you still operated kind of in a bubble. You knew if you were doing well or not, but you didn't know how you were doing with comparison to the overall industry. So even getting to that more advanced data and more holistic data of the industry, where you can compare, like the New York retails, that's much different than when California retails came out in 17 and 18. And you might be doing $1 million a week and you think you're doing great, but if your partner or your competitor down the street's doing $3 million a week and you don't know that, you're getting your lunch handed to you. You just think you're doing great. And then one day you realize that's not the case. I thought I was. Now you have much more transparent data to analyze and to make decisions to the future based off of.
Yeah. And I'd say from there, like talking about legacy and Beard Bros being at the intersection of culture and industry, I think also what's important is looking at those other partnerships and relationships that you develop to help legacy folks, and I mean, even non-legacy folks, understand the importance of other parts of the business, such as like marketing your dispensary, the importance of like customer acquisition, customer retention, making sure your SEO is good, making sure your campaigns are good. So these are things that, there's a holistic part of operating your business. And I think that's really key too. So I'd say, do you guys want to maybe speak to the marketing side of things for some of these operators, and how we have to get out of just maybe the word of mouth underground kind of way of thinking about things and thinking that that's going to keep your business surviving, to let's cross the bridge here to the other side where we are now, so we can keep these businesses viable?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing we understood was we've been providing a service to legacy and traditional operators with just keeping up with the news and putting our interpretation of what's going on as operators within the industry. And that's really what started our media. It wasn't, at first, it was literally just putting out articles that explained from our perspective what was happening at first in California and then in other states and now globally. That then morphed into, because California was very restrictive, we weren't able to keep our cultivation license. So we then had to lean more into the media. That has been an amazing asset. We didn't understand it at the time necessarily. We were just pivoting to survive and keep our head above water. But in retrospect, that was a really big move for us. And on top of that, as far as media goes, without formal media training, our media had always just been guerrilla style. How do we market ourselves where you're banned completely? You know, used to be Instagram was kind of cool. Now it's not cool at all, right? About 5 years ago, 6 years ago, we discovered what an amazing tool LinkedIn could be. And not only from just connection, but marketing. You can basically put any type of advertisement for cannabis that you would want, other than illegal, on LinkedIn. And you won't get censored. They won't take it down. And people will see it. And you can get actual actionable business from being on there. So it's been a very wild ride from just, hey, let's provide value to our friends by putting up our interpretation of what's happening to now actually guiding companies bigger than us on how to maneuver through media.
Well, and even just that marketing has actually changed in mindset itself. It used to be most of your customers were already coming to you or coming into your sphere. They were established cannabis users and connoisseurs because of the illegality of it, and they knew how to find the good flower brands, the good concentrate brands. But now it's shifted to, I'm trying to open up new markets, new demographics, new audiences to my products. So you're having to, and it's a more competitive landscape as we've gotten access into programmatic and display ads and some of the more mainstream channels. Well, now you're not just competing on your own, or you're competing against small groups. You're competing against larger groups from larger industries that are all trying to get access the same demographic of people. So it's become a much more complicated, nuanced way. And in a lot of ways, you've already exposed yourself to all those experienced legacy side operators, connoisseurs, all those. It's the mainstream, and it takes a different tact and a different method and a different delivery to connect through to those people and to capture their attention. You don't have them coming to your social media page every day to look at your news and see your new product. Your new product might need to be a creative marketing campaign that has some viral aspect to it that gets some attention on it for people to realize, oh, they've got this product out, and wow, they're already trusted over here, so I should really try the product. But to get that message through the noise is much more difficult than it used to be, because it's a much bigger bubble that you're working in.
Yeah, definitely. So I know you guys are working on all different types of marketing avenues for your media clients, whether it be product touching, ancillary, and service providers, things like that. So can you speak to your strategy and some of the different avenues that people can use?
Like Jeff said, it's become very different than it used to be. We focused mainly on content creation and advertising space on our website and our newsletter in the past. Like Jeff has said, now it's turning into, we partner with people like Puff Creative to create campaigns around what we're able to do. And so as Beard Bros, what we've garnered in the last 5 years was a lot of eyeballs and a lot of attention on us. And so our position in it has come more of an amplification that's backed by an agency like Puff that has 30 plus employees that have done this over time for different industries.
I think that's actually just the public facing view of it. Because giving an example, like someone like Puff, yes, we worked together with them in Vegas on 3 different events that supported Freedom Grow, them along with Fat Nugs. But we've also worked with them on a lot of back end stuff that the public doesn't see. So I see it needing a dual prong or a multi-prong approach there as well. It might be somebody that you only see in person with us at one event in a year, but we might be working with them every month on a lot of back end things that are structurally helping people to change their business, that then allow them to have more revenue available for marketing spends, for event spends, for advocacy efforts, for things that just build more of a full scale model around your company, where it isn't just providing a service or providing a product. People can tap into you for a lot of different reasons. We naturally have worked with Freedom Grow over the course of the last decade, and it was a natural step to get into a C-suite position with that. But that just allowed us to have a bigger megaphone to spout what we'd been living ourselves over a decade, and to get more people aware of that. And the amount just in the last half of year of people that have recognized, oh, Beard Bros is this in depth with this, it's kind of pre-vetted it and gone, how can I get involved in helping it? Nobody needs to have an incentive to help prisoners want to get out of jail for nonviolent cannabis offenses. But once it was seen, and I give another analogy to it is it's very much like High Times coming back in with Josh as the owner of it now. People are going, wow, so I can get rid of the High Times in the past, I thought, and they can be a massive amplification for what I'm looking to do. And they're looking for community topics. I see their newsletter every week, and the things and the contributors they're bringing into that to talk about things that they High Times themselves, I wouldn't say don't care about, but just don't have the bandwidth to dive into. But now they can pull that subject matter expert, put their message on steroids and get it out to so many more people, and help the greater good from that perspective. I think that's something you're seeing a lot more people see the value in for themselves, but just the value overall and the ability to help people, and how much that keeps your sales going, keeps your fuel system charged up.
Yeah, I'm seeing like the benefits of partnerships and finding those folks that you want to work with, so we work with Puff as well, and so it's funny because now we're all working in the same ecosystem. We end up finding the same good folks that we want to work with. And I think that that's what we see happening in the industry, is this kind of segmentation of the folks that are actually know how to do their skill set and whatever their profession is very, very well, and they're rising to the top. It's like I think about just the cream rising to the top in all these professional service industries, and then we're complementing each other by finding what they do, for example, that might be better than what we do. So with Puff, we're, as an accounting firm, we're running a retail insights audit program, a KPI dashboard, and things like that are more insightful than, say, some of the POSs and some of the other software out there right now. And, when we do the retail insights program, we're working on gross profit and above, which is revenue, COGS, inventory level, things like that. And looking at gross margins on product SKUs, looking at cannibalization trends on, say, for example, one of our clients in South Dakota is selling ounces, but they're selling them at too low of a price, and it's actually cannibalizing their eighths, right? So now retail customers are not going in and buying eighths because we found that the pricing on their ounces is way too low, and so it's affecting their eighth sales. So these are the kind of minutia that we start looking into as we get past what I call triage and maintenance mode. Now we're getting into proactive mode. But what we're looking to do with Puff is, who can help the gross profit line item, the gross revenue, and bring in new customers between customer retention, acquisition, SEO, and who can help that. Well, that's not something that I do, right? And so looking at somebody like that to help us with that retail insights program, and then we just plug in partners and then plug in you guys. I know you guys are working with maybe the programmatics. I'm not sure how that fits in quite yet, but you see, we start doing these collabs and figuring out how it's like a Tetris puzzle, and we start fitting each other into it with the good players, right?
Yeah, we're literally watching industry community building from a front row seat, like being part of it, right? Because this is Jeff likes to say it's like the oldest new business there is, right? Selling weed. People have been selling weed for a long time. Now we've put all these constraints around it and parameters and business requirements. I say this all the time. The moment you start adding a red or a black number to the bottom of that spreadsheet, rather than a nonprofit that's a medically motivated idea, you have to incorporate business techniques, or you won't be here next year to help your patients or clients.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's where these collabs come in, and spending time together. Jeff, I know you're working on the cannabis chamber in Sacramento in Northern California. So I think that's do you want to chat about that and how that's helpful for everyone? Yeah.
Absolutely. And again, this is another example of something kind of organically coming up. We and you had both been around and seen the Cannabis Chamber of Commerce for a long time. I'll be honest, at the beginning, it didn't really seem like that was something we needed to get involved in. It's like we go everywhere, we see everybody, we know all these people. The community that we've met from that, and again, to tap back into what you said, the hyper local community. That's what it really allows you to do. When we went to Amsterdam and Germany, and there were chamber chapters that were already there and burgeoning and starting up, we met the people that wanted to run those chapters. So you met the person that already knew most of the good actors in that area, and it allowed you to come in and kind of be pre-vetted by them, and then them pre-vet people to you. And it's building that trust where you don't have to, go and meet with somebody 6 months or 12 months to establish that. You're, by association, you're going, this person's introducing me to somebody that's good, that's going to add value to it. I've lived in Sacramento now for 4 years. I always knew there was a good operator community here that wasn't extremely public facing, because some of them play both sides of the fence. Some of them are just in their particular lane and they aren't needing to expose themselves to the rest of the industry. But just in doing the first couple of mixers that we've had and see it go from 30 people to 60 people, I think here in January, we're going to be close to 100 people. And it mostly is people I didn't know that were in the industry that also lived in Sacramento. And they've come to it because they look at Beard Bros as something that's all over the world, and how can we help them? And I go, well, that's great, but we're also here in the same city, so we can support each other, operator to operator, man to man, woman to woman, that type of scenario. But we can also support each other in business, and we can introduce them to the San Francisco chapter and the LA chapter here in California, if that's the only thing. If they're looking to expand to the East Coast, the Tri-State Networking Group that you've been involved with for a very long time, and Michael Schwam, you go, oh, you're looking to get into New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania. We've got the perfect person. You can get 5 minutes with them and explain what you do. You're going to end up with a handful of people at the end of that meeting reaching out going, how can I help? And I think that's the other thing that's a little bit foreign to operators, is not being used to sticking your hand out and somebody trying to shake your hand. Usually somebody was trying to cut that hand off, take that hand with them, and sell it to somebody else.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we ride together, and I got to say that cannabis chamber up in Sacramento is largely due to you, Monica, Cherie, at here at Verdant, you guys all coming together. You're the ones who packed that room. So,
and again, why that is unique and works is that Monica and Cherie have worked together in numerous jobs together. They know the industry from different areas. Cherie's been in Sacramento longer than Monica and I. She had her own network that she brought in. Monica has her own network that she brought in, and I do as well. So we're a little microcosm of that, where we're bringing 3 different groups of people together, and then bringing all these outside groups in together. And since it just ended yesterday, I'm a big Stranger Things fan. It's the hive mind mentality. You get people like-minded, and they naturally start operating together. They see somebody doing something good, and they all go, how can I get involved? Conversely, they see somebody bring up a bad issue or a bad actor or a bad operator, and everybody goes, whoa, we need to get away from that person as fast as we can, or that group or that company or that lobbying group or whatever it may be. We don't want to, because you trust what the person is telling you. And that's still the biggest thing. Go all the way back into the 70s and 80s in Humboldt, go to the East Coast where we grew up and lived, and trust is still the most important thing. You usually had it yourself and you built it organically. Now it's a much bigger pond, a much bigger playing field, and you don't know who's good and bad actors. And shortening that runway is the biggest value that you can add to a new operator.
Yeah, that's very well stated. That's literally what I was going to say about networking now, as opposed to when we were all hiding, not only from the authorities, but from each other. The networking done correctly shortens the curve on finding the people you do want to work with and the people that you don't want to work with. You don't necessarily have to get burned now. Like Jeff said, you can hear from other people that somebody might not be doing good business. And conversely, you can hear from people that people are doing good business, and those are the ones you gravitate towards.
Yeah, I was going to say, so kind of shout out to Ian Rassman, with his, because you mentioned the EU Cannabis Chamber and also the LA chapter. Ian Rassman and Hirsch Jan, of course, run the LA chapter and do an awesome job there. So I'm looking forward to the new year. And, Ian's been involved with California Normal and just doing really good work there. And also, he does amazing work with his payment processing. So I'm going to give him a shout out there. good people that you want to be involved with. And so I think this is the power of what we're talking about. We've already been out there for a number of years, watched the good, the bad, the ugly. And so shortening that runway, not getting involved with somebody you shouldn't be involved with, can save your business tons of money from the beginning, not to mention the benefit of us all getting together. So a little history there on, the EU Cannabis Chamber. It is a free monthly networking that you can be involved with if you're interested in the EU area. And a lot of the folks are there in the various countries, and they're actually already meeting already. So we've seen just from Berlin at ICBC, shout out to Alex Rogers and Tallman House as well, and Jamie Pearson and everybody. I just want to shout out a whole bunch, like, here's all the good players. I give you the list, but at Berlin, we launched the initial EU cannabis meeting, and just from there, with the work that's been done, Chris and everybody putting that work in it, and it's just taking its own shape, right? And then now they're having meetings in the various countries. So I think Spain, Portugal, Germany, they're already having their own meetings within those, countries. So that's super helpful. What were you going to say, Jeff?
Well, I would say it's funny you brought up Ian and Alex both, because they kind of reinforce what we were talking about. If Bill and I were still growers in SoCal, granted, there's a good chance we meet Ian at an event just naturally, but and his connection to Normal maybe. But like, Ian's on the opposite side of the industry. If we were still just growers in SoCal, the chance of us meeting and working closely with Ian, not probably that great. Alex is a guy that back in the 2000s was in the Bay, long hair, dready, grower, operator side. Now he's the clean cut guy in Europe doing a lot of high-end business networking. So they're people that recognized what they needed to shift and pivot about themselves. And it's just exploded their own awareness, their own brand trust, brand loyalty, brand equity, and personal equity around the world. So I think it's interesting you hit on those two, because they kind of, they back up everything we were just talking about. And it's what we noticed. Like, we came out to California from the East Coast, and we immersed ourselves in the growing side of the industry, which naturally the grower extractor community, but you didn't expand beyond that much. You were busy enough, which was a good thing, that you only interacted with those people, and the consumers and all the ancillaries were kind of outside of that. Having to now build those networks and being able to do that is one of the most effective hacks or shortcuts that anybody can find. And we've watched over the years the people that pick it up. There was one at our media day that we saw in Vegas, and it was a completely organic thing. Bill was up on stage doing the panel with Rochelle and Dustin and Chris Roberts from MJ Biz, and I'm forgetting the fourth.
Angela.
Yeah, Angela. I'm sorry, I can't forget Angela. And I was out watching, the people around, the media people filming it. And I watched one man there dedicated on his camera, filming the entire thing, filming the entire pitch slam that we did after that. And his name was Peter Moon. He's got a brand called Faith and Moon. But we went up to him afterwards and was like, hey, noticed you captured that entire thing unedited. Want to talk to you about how can we do things collaboratively with that together. He recognized the opportunity immediately. And if you've been on LinkedIn in the last couple of weeks since MJ Biz, you've seen it. He's been tagging everybody around these things and building his own little hive mind network around CB2 receptors, his passion project within the industry, his thing he wants to build products around, but his thing he really wants to help people around. I had never really heard of Peter before MJ Biz, and watching him in the last month, how he took that opportunity of meeting us and talking to us about that one piece of content and went, I can get so much done around this. That's exciting to me, seeing people that get it, the people that get it and go full bore for it.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it's also interesting watching, kind of like you said, the shift in people who get it, and they're coming from that kind of legacy mindset and things like that. So I love seeing that transformation. I mean, a lot of people don't know. Also, I met Alex. I was chatting with him, Alex Rogers, at this Tallman event in London. He gave me his Jack Herrera story, and actually, it's funny because it triggered me. I remembered, like, when I first came here to California, I met Jack Herrera, and I helped him with the petitions back then too. And I have my own story of starting in this market many years ago, where my first cannabis client, this is kind of interesting. I got this call because I was just a random accountant, you know, and I was even advertising myself on Craigslist. This was many, many years ago. Remember Craigslist? And I get this call and it's like, hey, I'm a cannabis cultivator. My CPA says I need a bookkeeper. I need to pay you in cash and I'll meet you in an alleyway and I'll give you a, you know, so like, that's how I started. That's how I started. And it was so like crazy and exciting back in those days, and like holding people's hands to the, you know, to them getting their licenses and coming over to the legal side of the market, actually getting licensed, building out their cultivation facilities. Some of these are brands, you know, in California now, and just kind of watching the change. But, you know, back then, like my firm, 420 CPA, was one of the only firms in the industry. It's been around since 2009, was one of the only firms that was actually doing tax returns for the cannabis industry. And my former partner just believed that people have the right to have a tax return, right? Whether they're doing whatever they're doing, they need a tax return. And so I had to transform the firm from kind of that mindset of being the only show or in town, the only CPA that would actually do tax returns. There was a couple other firms in Colorado that were doing it back in 2009 as well, but we had to kind of grow with the industry ourselves. We have our own story of that, you know? And it's like, oh no, now there's more firms out there. Now people are kind of catching on. Oh shoot, we got to get out there. Otherwise we're going to be a dinosaur. We can't rest on our laurels as a CPA firm, because it, you know, there's a bunch of new players out there, right? So we had to change with the times too ourselves, you know. And I think so that's where I relate with a lot of the legacy folks, is like, we thought we were the only show in town, and now we need, you know, there's a whole global market out there right now, and now we're competing, you know, with all these other firms. Actually, that's a whole different story, because now there's a lot of firms getting out of the industry. But there was a time period where it was like the industry was clouded with a bunch of new entrants into the market because it was sexy and cool and fun. And now they're all getting out because they realize it's not so sexy, it's not so cool and fun. It's actually hard work, and you have to be a partner to these operators, and you can't just disappear when the audits come in. So I've seen the whole full cycle. Sorry, I went on a rant there, but that's why the story.
It actually dovetails in nicely, because the first thing I thought about was in 2009, naming your CPA firm 420 CPA. There's a stigma around that you had to get past from the general accounting industry, and how they would view you, much like we were viewed as growers and operators. So a mindset shift for you along the way as well, from like hiding still somewhat, even though you had that as your name, not wanting to own it, to then like having to own it and be like, no, we were one of the first ones that did it. All these other people that came along after that didn't put 420 in their name, didn't have pot leaves in their logos with their faces on them, like they didn't step out into the forefront. Now it's like, oh, well, now I made it easier for everybody else to compete with me. Now I have to compete harder against them because I laid the groundwork for them.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because a lot of firms are now getting out of the industry because you have to be resilient, right? So any firm can get into the cannabis industry. I'm talking about from a CPA standpoint. Get on my soapbox for a second. But any firm can get into the industry. You can put pot leaves all over your CPA firm as much as you want, or be a big firm and think it's sexy to get in. And then you realize, oh no, this is real. There's people with real cash flow problems. There's people who need more support because there's so many arrows, as you know, coming at operators. So if you're not resilient in this industry, and I'll speak from a CPA firm standpoint, you're not going to be around very long, because you're not going to be there when the arrows start coming in, you know? And so that's any service provider in this industry. I've watched the passing parade. I've watched them come in. I've watched them leave. I watched them go out in flames. Some of them are okay. I'm not going to say they're all terrible. Some of them are okay. And they've actually done a good job and an honorable job. So I won't discredit those, but I can just speak to like service professionals in general coming in, burning out real quick, just like operators, and they're no longer here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can see it. The entire industry has to evolve. We couldn't just grow pounds anymore. That wasn't enough. right? So we started dipping into media. That started dipping into events. That started dipping into consultation because people recognized after we started going to events and promoting ourselves that we had knowledge that they needed. And you've done the same thing, right? Somebody said if you are a bookkeeper first, then you're an accountant. Now you're really more of a financial planning firm for people who does bookkeeping and accounting as well. Same thing we've done. And Alex is a great example. We worked with Alex for years before we ever went to ICBC. We would do media trades with him. We would promote him. He would include us in his booklets and pamphlets that were in Europe. So we started seeding that ourselves and evolving ourselves. And I think we'd be remiss if, because everybody on this right now knows Europe is a massive opportunity for American legacy and traditional operators because they need knowledge over there. Yes, they've been growing cannabis just like everybody else in the world for decades and centuries, but they haven't had what California had, which was a quasi-legal industry for 30 plus years now. And so there's a massive opportunity for anybody who's operated in this industry, taken their lumps, been beat up, had to evolve, had to pivot. There's a massive opportunity to go work in Europe, make good relationships, and help them shorten their learning curve.
Yeah, and so people like, so I was gonna put another plug in here for like people like Jamie Pearson, right? And Ann again. But Jamie's out there with her team and she knows all the good players, and then we're learning, as you mentioned, we've been seeding and kind of figuring out the good folks to work with out there. So again, there's people that are kind of paving the way for you ahead of time. If you're interested in getting involved in the EU market as an investor, as an operator, trying to look for your point of entry, and so there's a lot of consultants that are out there out in Europe or very well involved there that have already sorted out that list of the good, the bad, the ways to market and things like that. And Heidi Whitman's another one. Heidi Whitman's very helpful. She's got her feet in the ground out there as well. And she's done a lot of sorting through the good, the bad, the ugly. So there's a lot of people out there that can really help you, and I know you guys have been out there. We've been out there together. I don't know what you've gathered out of there so far, but
I think that the biggest takeaway for me from Europe, and obviously there's been some backtracking a little bit in some of the countries, but is how the countries are so progressive. And it seemed to me almost to be competing with each other to who can be the one to push things forward. Here in the US, we seem to be trying to gum up the works and slow things up and back things off and make it more convoluted and more difficult. And they seem to be, now granted, political parties change and things like that, like what's happening in Germany right now, but they seem to be taking the public interest to heart and actually trying to do good for the people that are there rather than just the corporate interest there. And I think that's the biggest change mindset-wise that I saw when we were there. But how they live their lives just in general in Europe compared to how we have the hustle culture here. But they're trying to find the best model. And when one country finds something, others are looking to emulate it. Here we've seemed to emulate the bad policy to then have controlled markets that then people could manipulate and corrupt and do things that are only benefiting a small group of people, where they're trying to actually move the entire thing forward in the right way. And Bill loves to always tout this number. There's twice as many people in half the physical area. So just from a general business standpoint, there's more of an opportunity there to make more of an impact with less effort. I guess less effort isn't the right way to say it, but with intentful effort, you'll get better results there than you can here potentially.
Yeah, well, and also just take these 2 points together. The United States still can't ship between states. We can't ship between countries. And moving forward with Schedule 3 doesn't solve any of that problem. Matter of fact, what we're going towards here, Schedule 3 becomes isolated single molecule formulations that have to go through approval and are sold through pharmacies. Just look at Germany. You get a medical license over there, and you're getting flour from the pharmacy. They are absolutely light years ahead of what we're doing right here as far as getting the flour is the most easy and fastest way to consume cannabis to get to market, right? The flour itself. They recognize that. Right? You're never going to be able, well, I shouldn't say never. Right now, for the foreseeable future, you're not going to pick up any flour at CVS moving forward. That's not going to happen. And so from my perspective as a long-term, decades of cultivation and watching the industry emerge, Europe is on the right path. we just keep having these roadblocks thrown in front of us here. What we have lost in the last 5 years by not being the people that were shipping to Germany, because they only had a couple of grows, but they had 90 million people that were looking for cannabis, and now they're giving it to them through their pharmacy, many times paid through insurance. So from a patient standpoint, you go to Europe, you've got insurance, they give you your meds for free or a copay at the pharmacy. We're nowhere near that here in the United States.
Well, it's a medical system out there, right? So it's patient focused, it's patient centric. We are a recreational, non-medical system forward. And, so back out in Europe, they've got a completely different approach, and they're actually working, lockstep with the health insurance companies, the medical professionals. And I'm not going to speak as well to this as somebody that's central there in Europe can, but that's a central difference that I see.
The difference is, and it's not perfect up there either, but Canada is federally legal. There's a big difference between federally legal and Schedule 3. Schedule 3 is still federally illegal unless you have a drug manufacturing license from the feds, right? So they take that approach. We've had products in Canada, and Blue Cross Blue Shield has paid our partners in Canada to send flower to veterans. I mean, granted, their system is not great, but that aspect of it, that can't get any better, in my opinion, where insurance is actually paying for medicine for veterans.
Yeah, it's great. Yes, I guess, let's wrap it up. We were saying, hey, we'll probably talk for half an hour, but whenever we get on the phone, we could do this forever.
Always.
We're well over an hour.
Yeah. We're at 52 minutes and 32 seconds.
I think
so
the overarching message from all of this is that just like in 24 and 25, you will see a lot of Beard Bros and a lot of Verdant in the US and around the world at a lot of events, doing a lot of advocacy work, introducing a lot of new people to the industry, helping a lot of operators to flourish in ways that they have not before, and to be on the lookout for us.
That's it. See you in 2026, everybody. Thank you so much.